As the sun beats down on the Costa del Sol this week, Jock simmers quietly.
Shut up.
Wayne gets all hot under the collar.
My name is Helga. I come for sleep.
And overheating engines aren't the only things getting stripped down.
Where are we going to put it?
It's Monday morning, and the hottest day of the season so far on the Costa del Sol. The mercury is rising at English Mobile Mechanics. And even the boss, expat Scot Jock Campbell, who has lived in Marbella for almost 20 years, is feeling the heat.
So hot. Everybody's knackered by 12 o'clock with the heat. Summer here is just too hot. It's really hot, Really warm in here, Oh, roasting. This is mad heat, this is,
Previously, the newly expanded garage hit critical mass with one of their busiest days.
I'm rushed off my feet now.
Everyone was under pressure, and it showed. Jock almost put the boot in the computer. And even his favourite new mechanic Sandy lashed out in frustration.
It was awful.
Wayne took out his frustration on a steering rod.
Cut the arm off now, won't I?
But even more painful was how much he missed his dad.
He's always been there for me, do you know what I mean? Every step of the way, he's always there.
Receptionist Claire became ever more disillusioned as her relationship with Jock deteriorated.
Maybe it's just me, I don't know. I just feel as if I don't talk to him. Because he's going to throw something at me or tell me to F off.
And the garage expansion took its toll on Jock's relationship with his daughter, Alethea.
With all the excitement, you see, I forgot to pick Alethea up for school.
My dad is really stressed out now. Not that he wasn't before, but he's more stressed out than before because there's obviously more work.
But despite the heat and the workload, Sandy has a smile on his face. His girlfriend has been for a visit, and he had a busy weekend.
We say the pool at 2 o'clock and the pool shuts at 2, then what did I? Then we just went in the sea, tried to swim in the sea, and then fell asleep on the beach for the rest of the day.
Steph's girlfriend visited too, but he's despondent after dropping her off at the airport.
I'm standing here and literally she's just like walking off into the terminal sort of thing, and it's just like there's a big metal gate in front of me and there's nowhere I can go sort of thing. I was really, really upset when she went.
But her visit wasn't a universal success. Frustrated Wayne, who's single, shares a flat with Steph and wished he'd invested in earplugs.
It's weird, because you're in your bedroom trying to get a kip and all you hear is this... I think, what's going off in there? Submachine guns, mate? Sentinel. Boom!
Poor old Wayne is feeling the heat, in more ways than one. But luckily there's plenty of work to take his mind off it. Jock's diary is crammed with jobs because so many cars are overheating in the blistering Marbella sun.
If you look in that diary, look, full, all the way through. Must be the heat.
And the first casualty of the morning is this VW Golf, which has been getting rather too hot under the bonnet.
It's coming full overheating.
Sandy suspects that coolant is leaking out somewhere, causing the engine to overheat, so he tops it up with water to find out where it's escaping. He quickly spots the leak.
See not
But he's worried that the overheating may already have caused some serious damage.
cook the engine. That's why it's stinking, because it's been really hot.
This vintage 1970s model is going to need the boss's attention. The Mark I VW Golf is a modern classic. First launched in 1974, over 5 million of them had been sold by the time Volkswagen introduced the Mark II in 1983. The cabriolet caused a storm when it hit the dealerships in 1979, and by 91, the Golf drop top was the best-selling convertible in the world. But 20 years on, this one isn't creating a storm, so much as a nasty smell.
That's stinking like when the oil, when he's cooked it.
The acrid smell of burnt oil is a sure sign this engine has been running way too hot. and may have blown its head gasket.
We can test the gasket now. We'll get the sniffer on it and
see if it's leaking.
A gasket is a generic term for anything that forms a seal between machine parts and pipes. Jock thinks the likely culprit here is the head gasket, which is made of a squashable material that forms a seal when it's compressed between the cylinder head and the engine block, when the two are screwed together. Luckily, there's a simple way to test if there's a leak of gas from the engine.
Yeah, I've got a machine for detecting exhaust gases in the water system. And as soon as any exhaust gases touch this blue fluid, it will turn bright yellow. I'll give you a quick demonstration of this. You can see that blue liquid, yeah? I'll show you what happens when it starts to sniff exhaust gases.
Jock is demonstrating the principle of the sniff test on the exhaust. If carbon monoxide is detected, a chemical reaction changes the fluid from blue to green.
You see the colours change completely.
But the real test is to check whether carbon monoxide is leaking into the coolant where it shouldn't normally be found. A positive result here means a broken gasket at best and serious engine damage at worst, which could lead to a repair bill costing more than this old Golf is worth. Coming up on The Garage, is it the end of the road for this Mark I Golf?
Don't you think you'd be better cutting your hands off?
Wayne's baby girl better be worth her weight in gold.
It's got up in hundreds of pounds on little.
And everyone is bowled over by Jock's dirty tricks.
What the f*** did you have, man?
Coming up in The Garage, sparks fly between Wayne and Danny.
Who said mechanics was safe?
Jock's competitive streak spills out of The Garage.
That's one!
And Glyn's loyalty goes above and beyond the call of duty.
I'm hoping to go into labour maybe early hours of the morning so I don't have to get called away from work.
It's a scorching day in Marbella, and the team at English Mobile Mechanics have been feeling the heat. Hot weather means a lot of overheating cars, and everyone is busy. And they'll be even busier when Dad-to-be Glyn disappears. He's just waiting for the call to say his new baby is coming.
It's just a nerves thing now, just waiting for the phone to ring and go, he's on his way, you better come home. I'm hoping it'll happen in the evening, not through the day. So I said, I don't really want to turn up to the hospital at Nice.
Earlier, this ancient VW Golf came in with a serious overheating problem. Overheating is something everyone dreads, causing up to 250,000 cars to break down in the UK every year, usually as a result of a malfunction in the cooling system. Inside the cooling system of any car, water and antifreeze or coolant circulate through galleries around the cylinders and in the cylinder head, where the liquid draws heat out of the combustion chambers. A pump circulates the coolant through the radiator at the front of the car and the heater in the passenger compartment. Fans blow air through the radiator and heater, drawing the heat out of the liquid and into the environment. The cooled liquid then circulates back to the engine and the process begins again. If any of the cooling system component breaks, or if the coolant leaks, then the result is an overheating engine. Sandy found and fixed the leak, but the mechanics fear that the damage may already have been done. Jock is testing for exhaust gas that has leaked into the coolant.
I'm just going to sniff this water bottle now. If this goes green, the cylinder head will be coming off the car. Can you see the colour it's going? The head gasket's gone in the car. That's it.
But a head gasket replacement isn't cheap.
It's going to be relatively expensive, obviously. It's not like a couple of hours job.
In fact, it could cost 400 quid, and the car is only worth 300. Is this Golf headed for the scrapyard, or could it get an expensive stay of execution?
It all depends how much he likes his car. At the end of the day, you know. So phone the guy up now and give him the bad news, I suppose.
But while the future of this German model hangs in the balance, a vintage American classic rolls through the doors. It's a Chevy Camaro, and it belongs to South African finance whiz kid and property developer Bev Stewart James.
I bought it in Tokyo, actually, and imported it into the country. Lots of fun to drive.
4 years ago, Bev's wife Antonia was diagnosed with a life-threatening brain tumour. Following a dangerous operation to remove it, she recovered, but their brush with fate made them decide to seize the day and follow their dream of moving to Spain. And for Bev, living the dream means having a fast car.
Women think we're all mad, they find us boring because it's cars. What the hell, you know? In my bed, there's nothing else. You either sit in a bar or you go and play golf. There is nothing else. I've had 3 Camaros. I like American because they normally don't go wrong and they're clunky and they've got a bit of power.
The Chevy Camaro is an American automotive success story. Originally launched as General Motors' response to the Ford Mustang in 1967, over 200,000 of them were sold in the first year of production. The car has evolved over 35 years with 4 different generations of body shape. But one thing that hasn't changed is the Camaro's status as one of the powerhouses of the muscle car world. It's no wonder their owners like to show them off when they can. And so every Sunday, Bev takes his Camaro out for a spin with the rest of the Marbella jet set.
We have about in excess of 20 Ferraris. And we have guys like Dolph Lundgren, you know, the actor. He's got a new one. And we meet every Sunday at Tony Dolly's. And if there's a Grand Prix, we all go down to one of the restaurants that he owns and we go and watch the Grand Prix. And it's all a big laugh.
Unfortunately, the car has had a host of problems recently, and Bev has become a regular face at the garage.
It's 15 years old, it's done 26,000 kilometers. So. But it's like us, you know. The older you get, bits start falling off or not working properly, so you just have to replace them.
The Camaro has problems with its timing. The main one being, it was manufactured almost 2 decades ago.
But when we actually took the cap off to put the rotor arm on, we pulled the rotor arm off, and the inside of the distributor just fell apart because it was so corroded. It looked like it had been snapped for a long time, and where we just disturbed it, it just fell to pieces. And of course, obviously the car won't run. So we're waiting for a new distributor.
Now all they can do is stick it on a ramp and wait for parts to come from England. But Glyn has got used to waiting. He's currently on tenterhooks as he awaits the arrival of his first baby.
So our life's on the hold, if you like, until he arrives. Then we can sort of like adjust to having him around and then get ourselves back to normal. We're going to name him Zach. Zach Edward Michael, but it'll just be called Zach. Not going to be Zach Edward Michael, it'll just be Zach.
But Glyn's not the only dad in the garage. Jock, of course, has teenage daughter Alethea.
See, well, one of my best mates is my daughter, believe it or not.
And Wayne has a 5-month-old daughter back in England.
Looks like me. She's £8.5 she was. It's lovely, man.
She may be worth her weight in gold, but Wayne's been counting the pennies.
She's got to spend hundreds of pounds on little that little bugger.
Kind of hair she got?
Ginger.
And Ewan thinks she's far too cute and gorgeous to have anything to do with Wayne.
Lovely, isn't she? She got yours.
For once, Wayne is lost for words.
It's not nice.
But his daughter isn't Wayne's only pride and joy.
This is the best picture. Well, I love my bag, do you know what I mean? If I could have, I would have brought it with me. Everyone knows Wayne and his white van. And it's just my trademark, really. The Chavmobile, they call it.
Right at the opposite end of the spectrum from Wayne's Chavmobile is the Audi TT. It might be worth 20 times what his van is, but that still can't save it from the searing heat. This high-spec roadster has just come in because the temperature gauge is well into the red and the dashboard is lit up like a Christmas tree. Unlike the VW Golf, there's no sign of a coolant leak on the TT, and the next most likely culprit for the overheating is a broken thermostat. The secret of the thermostat lies in the small wax-filled cylinder located on the engine side of the device. A rod connected to a valve presses into this wax. While the engine is cold, a spring keeps the valve closed and coolant doesn't circulate through the radiator. But as the engine heats up, the wax expands and pushes the rod out of the cylinder, forcing the valve open and allowing the coolant to start flowing around the radiator, cooling the engine down. If the thermostat breaks in the closed position, water won't circulate round the radiator and the engine will overheat. So Glyn replaces the thermostat and tests the radiator to see if it has fixed the problem. It remains cool, but that could be because idling in the garage doesn't heat the engine up enough to open the thermostat, so they decide to take it for a spin to get the engine nice and hot. While Glyn's out test driving the Audi TT, Ewan has caused a bit of a stir at the opposite end of the garage. He's been giving Jock the lowdown on his vehicle woes. Just 2 weeks ago, his car blew up on the motorway.
Just driving it back from Gibraltar and just lost power. And that was it. That was me stuck with a wife and 3 kids outside the road.
The engine was terminally ill with a bad case of broken valve.
Oh, look at that valve.
They decided the best bet was to replace the engine with a second-hand one from the scrapyard. After hours of hard work...
Everything's disconnected from the engine. Now, I say disconnected, either torn off or sawn off. How you doing, Glenn?
And getting lost.
Where's the van?
For sake.
They finally made it back to the garage, only to discover that the replacement was a completely different size from the one to Ewan's car.
That's tiny, mate.
Fortunately, they managed to lever it into place anyway. But no sooner had he fixed the BMW
Running okay.
than he had another unfortunate incident, this time in his van.
I just had a boulder, didn't even hear anything, just the oil light come on in the van, and I just thought, oh my god. Got back to the house, had a look at it, and discovered there was a big hole in the sump. So.
He's phoned me up on Sunday night. Jock. Yeah? Looked at the watch, I don't know what time it is. 10. Well, here we go, 8 coming. Jock, I've just ripped their sump out of my van now. I went, where? Is the sump here, is it? Show them the old sump. He's phoned me up, and as you can see, look at the size of that. He says the oil lights come on. That's a good one. The oil lights come on.
So Jock's advice would be that if your oil warning light ever comes on, and you're tempted to try and drive on, just don't. Back next door, the Audi TT has returned, but despite the new thermostat, the temperature gauge is still rising. It obviously wasn't a broken thermostat, but Sandy thinks he now knows what's wrong.
Yeah, lekker. I think the water pump's gone on, to be honest with you.
The Audi water pump circulates coolant using an impeller, which is a bit like a tiny paddle steamer wheel, which sits snugly inside the body of the water pump. The paddles push the coolant through the pump and round the engine, where it collects heat and then circulates to the radiator and car heater, where it can be emitted. If it breaks, the coolant stops circulating and the engine overheats. Unfortunately, the water pump is buried deep in the engine and isn't easy to get at.
I think that's maybe what could be a matter with it, but I want to know for sure. Make a couple of phone calls and see if it said if they've had previous with that, you know.
Replacing the water pump is a big job, so the guys want to call a friend who is an Audi mechanic to try and confirm their suspicions first. But they can't get the phone just yet, because Jock's hogging it.
And some bad news.
He's been talking to his client who owns the overheated Mark I Golf and delivering the bad news. This customer is going to have to pay more than his car is worth to get it back on the road. Amazingly, the client gives the go-ahead regardless of cost. Jock can hardly believe it.
Don't you think you'd be better cutting your hands off?
But in Jock's garage, the customer is always right, so he gets Wayne straight on the case. But no sooner has he put the phone down, it rings again, with some rather important news. Glyn's baby is on the way, so he dashes off to hospital to await the new arrival. Wayne's job is to replace the head gasket, which means removing the cylinder head.
This is the head, this here. Yeah. And see this gasket here? That's where it joins the block. The block's there, the head's there, there's the head gasket. You'll see it more clearly when I pull the off. Literally.
It's a good opportunity for Danny to watch and learn.
What was wrong with
Head gasket.
it? It's blown. Oh, is this the one that stinks of petrol then?
No, it stinks of burnt off.
And Wayne's lesson for her today is always remember to disconnect the battery before prodding it with a big metal stick.
Sparking? Who said mechanics was safe? Smoking.
To his surprise, when he finally gets the cylinder head off, he discovers that the head gasket isn't broken at all. But this is bad news. It suggests that the overheating has been so extreme, it has actually warped the metal cylinder head. And there's an easy way to check that with a simple metal ruler.
Cleaned it up. That's a flat edge. I'm just going to stick that across it. And as you can see... What? If I go across there... Can't see it through there. Huh? See it through there. See it through there. You see it on that corner there. You can't see it through there. Yeah? So it's at the middle of the head, like warps like a banana, goes down like that. When you've got a flat head and a flat block, you put a gasket between it, you tighten it down. You're just going to make a seal. But if you've got something like that, yeah, and you tighten it down, you ain't going to take up the clearance, yeah? You won't take it up. You won't bend that with a head bolt. No way.
The only way to get this car engine airtight again is a process called skimming, in which a minute layer of metal is skimmed off the surface by a precision cutting machine to make it flat again. But that will involve sending it off to a specialist firm, and it's too late to do it today. In fact, it's almost time to shut up shop when the phone rings with an important announcement.
English Mechanics.
Glyn is now the proud father of a 5 pound 5 ounce bouncing baby boy, Zach. It's not as if they needed a reason to go out, but Zach's arrival is just the excuse Wayne and the others were after for a midweek party. And where better to recover from the hot, steamy environs of the garage than the cool, air-conditioned comfort of the local 10-pin bowling alley. And it's just as well it is air-conditioned, as Wayne creates quite a stir when he takes his trainers off.
No, they don't stink.
It looks like the evening's entertainment may just be beginning, as the bright lights of Marbella beckon to some of the young mechanics. Coming up on The Garage, an ageing beauty turns up at Jock's door.
He's been up to East End today with a car, thrashing it round the corner.
And Wayne gets hot.
Pleasures of the job.
And bothered.
She might be playing at me, yeah. She might want a piece of the...
Coming up on The Garage, Jock gets alarmed.
Shut that.
Danny's choice of motor fails to impress Wayne.
Darling, do you know what I mean? Bucket.
And one visitor to the garage grabs everyone's attention.
Lovely old car, aren't they?
The unusually fierce summer heat has been getting to the cars of Marbella, and there's been a constant trail of overheating cars limping into Jock's garage.
Come in for overheating.
Car's overheating, mate.
Constant overheating.
Car's overheating.
Overheating.
Came in because it was overheating.
But it's not just the cars that have been feeling the heat. In the hottest week of the year, Jock's been deserted by mechanic Glyn because his first baby Zach arrived yesterday. And on a week that started with a crammed diary for Jock...
If you look in that diary, look, full, all the way through. It's fabulous.
Everyone will need to be on tip-top form, but it doesn't really look like that's the case this morning. It turns out that after 10-pin bowling last night, apart from diligent Sandy, all the new recruits spent the night on the lash. Jock has turned up to discover that Claire has phoned in sick, and he seems mighty suspicious.
I believe the secretary's had a good night. She's not come in this morning. I think she's ill. Don't know why. Look, party people.
Hang on. Why's everyone in such a rush for this morning?
And while Wayne, Steph and Danny have turned up, they're hungover and not quite firing on all cylinders.
Do you know what? Right, if we move that golf there, I'm just not very talkative this morning, sorry.
Goody Two-Shoes Sandy didn't drink last night, and now he's bossing the others around, and it's going down worse than a dodgy margarita. Despite his superior attitude, Sandy once failed to show up for work himself after a big night out.
I'm not going to steam into you, I'm only telling you, I really didn't want it to happen again, honestly.
Oh, no.
But now his relationship with Jock is very good. Some might say too good.
I'm not going to start butt kissing.
Sandy is definitely Jock's golden boy.
Sandy's got that. Sandy's got that job. Watching the oil. Come on, people, let's go. He's a great boy, he is. He knows exactly what he's at. He is a good mechanic, the boy. We get on so well. I get on so well with him.
And he's quite clear about how he emerged as the boss's favourite.
I've just stuck my heat, doing, get on with my job, and just do the job to the best of my ability, which I've done, you know. And I mean, that's obviously I had a lot of respect for Jock. I mean, this is his place, this is his garage, you know. I think they've all come over here and thought we'll just have a laugh and a party.
But the rift between him and the others is a source of friction.
You're the apprentice, sir?
Does it mean I have to run after you?
He ain't my boss. Don't give a who he thinks he is. Pumps up 3 king, what? Carrying a couple of miserable pigs to market, ain't he, gonna walk?
It is not a happy garage this morning. But despite the friction, there's work to do. And Sandy, the only one not struggling with a hangover, wants to get straight on with the overheating Audi TT that came in yesterday. They think the water pump has broken, but because replacing it is a big job, they wanted confirmation from an Audi mechanic Ewan knows. But he still hasn't made the phone call, and Jock's getting annoyed.
What's happening with that TT, mate?
Yeah, I'm going to have to phone my mate back.
Get it done then, mate.
And when Jock's breathing down your neck, there's only one course of action. And 2 minutes later, Ewan's got the information they want.
I phoned my mate back home, who actually works for Audi, main dealer. We had a rough idea it was that, but it was just to get a second opinion just in case, because I mean it's a big job, stripping the water pump out of it, it's maybe near, you know. So.
The reason it's such a big job is because the compact chassis packs an awful lot of engine into a very small engine bay, and lots of parts have to come out to reach the pump.
I mean, obviously the power steering reservoir bottle, the coolant reservoir bottle, all that'll have to come off. I mean, you've got your alternator belt, power steering belt, that'll have to come off. Timing covers. I mean, it's quite a big job, you know. Because there's not a lot of room to get your hands in, especially when you've got hands like mine, you know.
So, finding a good excuse not to get his own hands dirty, Foreman Ewan hands the job over. Sandy starts digging about inside the TT engine, and an hour and a half later, he finally strikes gold in the form of a broken water pump, just as he suspected all along.
Just disintegrated, cracked, obviously come away from the pump. I actually took the pump and that was just lying in the hole, basically. So it hasn't even been doing its job, basically it's just cracked off. That's the way it's laid. That's just been spinning around.
Now all he has to do is exactly the same time-consuming procedure in reverse. The Audi TT may have won loads of design awards, but Sandy's left with a distinct impression that the designers never had to change the water pump. Meanwhile, the award for the most loved car goes to the owner of that overheating VW. Despite discovering that the cylinder head is warped, he decides he wants the Golf fixed, even though the repair will cost more than the car's value. So Wayne removes all the extraneous components before it gets sent away to be skimmed.
That hurt.
He's also discovered that another garage dealt with the same overheating problem just 3 weeks ago, but didn't cure it.
I reckon what they've done, take the head off, bang the head gasket on it, tighten it down, job done.
In fact, Wayne's beginning to suspect that whoever worked on this car last didn't do a very thorough job at all.
I haven't even undone that bolt yet, and look, Yeah, I couldn't even undo it with my fingers. They must have got off their horse before they done this one. Diddling, 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 diddling. I've seen some sights in my time, but that takes the Well, if you're going to do a job, do it properly, is that what I mean? No point it up.
And as is the want with old bangers, the more he looks, the more he finds wrong with it.
Manifold's correct. It starts there. Yep. Goes all the way along here.
A cracked exhaust is a noisy exhaust, or in Wayne's words,
it'll blow like a as they say. That's what they say.
Wayne's brain is thinking along just one track at the moment, and he thinks he knows why.
Sexually frustrated, they call it.
But perhaps some idle chit-chat with Danny will take his mind off it. She's excited as her hot hatch has been featured in the car magazine.
I'll show you, my car's in fast car.
Yeah, but it's a printo, darling, do you know what I mean? Bucket of no disrespect, man, but, you know.
Yeah, but you know when you've built up your own car that you're proud that it's being put in a magazine, no matter what it is.
Why
no matter what it is.
Printo, man. Here.
Pardon me?
It's got the electrics of the Titanic, and what happens to that?
But when a punto fails to impress him, she takes pride in her newfound mechanical skills.
I took off calipers yesterday.
Did you?
And I put them back on.
Yeah.
Changed brake pads.
Yeah.
Did an oil change.
Show what you wasted here.
Thanks.
Well, that's ready to go.
The cylinder head will be sent off to a specialist for skimming, and there's nothing more Wayne can do to the Golf until it comes back. In the meantime, receptionist Claire defied Jock's suspicions by turning up to work, albeit looking a little bit paler than usual.
Yeah, a bit rough this morning. And I will state on camera, it is not alcohol. Unless something I drank made me quite ill. I swear, I've never been sick like that from alcohol. Never. So yeah, just feel a little bit ropey. But we're still going to sit and do the website, and if I sit at home, it's going to feel worse, so...
With Glyn still on paternity leave, it's all go in the garage, and Wayne moves straight onto the Camaro without a break. It's just had a new distributor fitted.
I'm just going to take it for a road test. Make sure it's alright.
But unfortunately, the engine sounds like a bag of nails.
Hear it? Sound.
So Wayne sets out to adjust the timing. But of course, as he's just had the car running, everything is red hot.
Roasting down there. Pleasures of the job.
His yelps bring Steph running to lend a hand.
Burning myself.
Heat, both outside and under the bonnet, seems to be the one topic of conversation.
So hot under it.
That's what you need, don't it? 30 degrees outside and then another 150 degrees under it.
But you can always count on these two to lower the tone.
Because it's hot, it's hard. It's always hot when it's hard.
Eventually between them, they think they've cracked the Camaro timing problems.
Hopefully, that'll be it.
Now it's time to turn it over and see whether the engine runs with the grace of a gazelle or limps like a three-legged dog. The engine sound is music to Wayne's ears. But given that it's been in and out of the garage numerous times, Jock and Steph will have to apply their litmus test of whether it's now mended.
If he doesn't come back, then we know it's right.
The gloves may be off between Wayne and Sandy in their personal lives, but at work, Wayne is helpful and professional.
White plastic gloves.
Well, he's helpful at any rate. And it's not the only slap in the face Wayne's had. Last night he discovered a disappointing fact about his favourite lap dancer.
I was gutted last night, man. Someone's burst my bubble. She's married. 9 out of 10 relationships end up in unfaithfulness anyway, so... statistics.
Yeah, how do you know it's true?
Ah, she might be playing me, yeah. She might want a piece of the...
Yeah.
But Wayne isn't the only failed pickup at Jock's garage today. The whale that has just beached itself on Jock's workshop floor is a Ford F-150 pickup in limited edition Harley-Davidson paintwork. But unlike Wayne pining for his unrequited love, Jock doesn't need an excuse to be grumpy.
Shut up. Come on.
It's got a misfire, but his experience points to the problem almost immediately.
Check all the coils in it. I've done loads of them. One of the coils will be broken, mate.
He thinks it has a broken ignition coil.
English mechanics.
The F-150 has a system called the single spark coil, which means each cylinder has its own ignition coil attached to a spark plug. They're fixed to the 5.7 litre engine by means of a small bracket. But one has broken, so it's not firing on all 8 cylinders. Jock's hunch was absolutely spot on.
Right, that's it. I knew it was a coil pack, guys. The bracket's broken off, causing the coil to jump off the top of the spark plug. Take that other coil out, and I'll show you what another one looks like. This is broken off. The bracket's broken off of there. That's it.
It simply needs a replacement coil pack, costing about 75 quid. But in Spain, things are never that simple.
We're not going to get one today because there's a holiday.
The F-150 owner wants the pickup back today, so Jock is going to have to find a more ingenious solution. If he can't buy a new bracket, he's going to have to manufacture one himself.
Aha, this could be the one.
It's Blue Peter time in Jock's garage, as he employs industrial-strength rubber bands and Jubilee clips to fix this 30 grand motor.
Where's that bolt? Oh, you mother.
But Jock does have an ulterior motive. That pickup takes up the space of 2 normal cars in his garage, so it's in his interests to get it out as soon as possible.
I'm just trying to get the guy out of trouble.
Using the rubber for insulation and the Jubilee clip to hold everything together, all Jock can do is cross his fingers.
Try it and see what else.
Swear liberally.
Right, give us an hour. Roll that.
And hope that it'll do the trick. Not that he has any doubts, of course.
This will just be a temporary thing. I think it'll work. Trouble is, in this garage, we do a bit of quick thinking, really, to be honest with you, because we can pile cars up. And I've got a solution for everything normally. Quick solution.
Modesty is not a concept Jock is overly familiar with.
Have you got confidence?
Right.
In me?
Yeah. I certainly have, mate. You're the engineer.
Didn't you see that bit I cut off for that coil?
That's what gave me
Yeah. There you go then. Sharp one, hang. I wish I could make myself a new set of teeth.
Next morning, it's Glyn's first day back at work since baby Zach's arrival, and he's quite the proud dad.
Takes after me for his good looks. Somebody said to me that if I put a pair of glasses on him, it'd look like a miniature me. I thought, poor little sod. How unlucky.
In fact, Glyn seems to be labouring under the misapprehension that his life will go on completely as normal.
I don't feel any different, really, except for he's there, you know. It's just I can't have the roof down on the car now, that's the only...
Unfortunately for Glyn, this will rule him out of using this. It's a Jaguar XK120 vintage race car, but nobody knows whose it is or what it's in for. Unfortunately, the tow truck man doesn't speak any English, and Ewan doesn't speak Spanish.
Yeah, what do you say? Speak English.
It turns out to belong to a friend of Jock's, and it's just in for a service.
That's a nice car, man. Lovely old car, that, like. That's a proper car.
He's been up to East End today with the car, thrashing it round the corners. I think it's 5 litre, but it's really tuned up. He's even got the original radiators on it. You see, look, the original rad, it's all been welded. You see, there is a couple of holes. There's so much you can keep. They didn't even want to put a patch in. They'd rather put more alley weld in. You see what I'm saying? It's a really good car. It's been really well restored.
The XK120, so called for its top speed of 120 miles an hour, made a splash when it was unveiled at the 1948 Earls Court Motor Show. Not least because it was designed and built in just 2 weeks. Jaguar's centrepiece was a beautiful new 3.4 litre engine, which had been designed to go into a large sedan. But the body wasn't going to be ready in time for the show, so this prototype open-top roadster was quickly fabricated to house the engine instead. It became a showstopper, going on to become what many believe is Jaguar's greatest contribution to automotive history. Many old XKs are used for racing, but they get a few modern touches.
You've got the kill switches on it as well, you know, if like had a crash or anything, kills the engine. It actually goes round his harness, you know, when you roll. As soon as it's like a jet ski, when you pull it off, it stops the car. Like.
Such a posh motor needs Jock's undivided attention, but with his current workload, it'll have to wait.
Hopefully, we'll get it running on Monday.
Coming up, Wayne tries to be politically correct.
Cowboy is an ugly word. Untrained mechanics is a good word.
Glyn finally realises that life will never be the same again.
It is hard. It's harder than what you think.
And Danny and Steph get stripped off for a mud wrap.
Never thought of a bloke rubbing my legs could ever feel good. But...
It's Friday morning, and Jock is surprised to see his clients are already turning up to fetch their mended cars ready for the weekend.
There's leaking water in the car. No fun.
Water in the car?
No.
While Jock is lost in translation, the Golf cylinder head has been skimmed and is all nice and shiny, unlike its DIY paint job.
Seen the bodywork on this piece of might as well got a roller from Do It All and done it.
And that's not the only dodgy thing about this car. The cylinder head was removed just 3 weeks ago by another garage, but they didn't have the head skimmed, so the problem just returned.
It's not very nice having to do a job twice. For a customer's point of view, they've paid for this job to be done once. Theoretically, they should have gone back to the garage that done it the first time. But there's always the problem they've lost their confidence in the garage. So it's not very good, is it? Cowboy is an ugly word. Untrained mechanics is a good word. Not cowboys. Danielle, on that bench, big black bolts. Numero 2.
When you're refitting a cylinder head, it's vital to do up all the bolts in the right order.
When you talk head bolts up, you're supposed to do them evenly. Go there, 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 in a circle, yeah? If you gun one side, and then work in, what you're doing, you're gunning down one side, so the head's going like that, gun down the other side like that, and the head could, like bow. Talking it down, you can actually warp ahead.
Once the cylinder head is bolted on, all that remains is what should be the simple task of filling it up with oil.
Oh, Mr. old enough.
Perhaps Wayne is out of practice. The owner has just spent 400 quid on a car that's only worth half that. Is it money down the drain? Well, it works. At least there's one old lady in Marbella that Wayne can say he's had a success with. As the week draws to a close for the mechanics, Bev comes to pick up what his wife calls his turquoise girlfriend, as he can't face the weekend without her.
Like I said, there's nothing else to do except drink, play golf or drive cars, so I still play with the Scale Electric as well.
Glyn is glad that work is over for a couple of days. When baby Zach first arrived, he was optimistic about the amount of sleep he would get.
I don't feel any different really, except for he's there, you know.
But not now.
It is hard. It's harder than what you think. Should get better. Should get better. Give him a couple of months and he should be right.
As Bev's Camaro rolls out of the door, the garage is empty for another week, and it's time for the mechanics to go their separate ways. And for Danny, that means a spot of pampering at Marbella's top spa. She's invited Steph along too, but he thinks she's having him on.
We're here for be covered in mud, I believe.
But it's no joke, as they discover that Marbella's biggest luxury spa provides Spain's tiniest paper pants.
Okay, there's not much of this. Where are we going to put it?
Oh, behave yourself.
In the cup.
And while Danielle gets into the swing of things, Steph is a bit perplexed by the situation.
I can't believe I'm being filmed wearing just this.
Danny finds it very easy to relax.
Feels nice.
But not so Stefan.
She's just relaxed.
Danny's sense of calm is briefly interrupted.
I have no suntan left.
But Steph is finally starting to get in touch with his feminine side.
Maybe like that.
Never thought I'd ever say that a bloke rubbing my legs could ever feel good, but you imagine Wayne doing this.
When it comes to being covered in muddy green goo, it might not be Danny's colour,
I normally go for purple.
but Steph gets a compliment on his newly acquired skin tone. And while Danny takes her classy chassis into the shower, the only jocks on Steph's mind are the paper ones he's wearing.
The what? The garage? What garage?
Next time on The Garage, things go wrong not only for the customers,
The problem hadn't been rectified properly.
but for some of the staff too.
There's no work.
We've given up our job, our family, our home.
And Wayne feels the effects of speeding.
And 5 o'clock is the time to catch more from The Garage all throughout this week. Coming up next, though, the Tunnels build the Black Widow bike.